In 1965, two American psychology professors, John Paul Scott and John L. Fuller, published a book entitled Genetics and the Social Behaviour of the Dog. This followed what is still considered to be the most comprehensive study into heredity and its effect on the behaviour of the companion dog. The book comprises 20 years of research on 5 breeds which they considered, at the time, represented the major breeding groups. These breeds were the Beagle, the American Cocker Spaniel, the Shetland Sheepdog, Wire-haired Fox Terrier, and the Basenji. Now, this book is not for the faint-hearted. It's approximately 500 pages of scientific research covering such topics as the development of behaviour, the development of social relationships, analysis of genetic differences, and the inheritance of behaviour patterns, to name just a few. Unsurprisingly, there is no mention of kisses and cuddles and doggy friends, or any other rhetoric currently associated with the world of dogs. There is, however, a section devoted to the previously unrecognised periods in a dog's development, known as periods of critical development. This proposed that within a dog's psychological and physiological development there are specific learning phases which are governed by the age of the dog. These learning phases were considered so important by Scott and Fuller, they termed them the critical period. These critical periods have an immediate and potentially lifelong effect on a dog's behaviour. Their studies of the development of behaviour showed that pups enter a period of massive change, generally starting at 3 weeks of age. Their observations led them to believe that even the smallest event during this period can have a significant influence on a dog's future behaviour. You can see by this discovery how important the critical period is and how much can go wrong by not appreciating the significance of this period in a dog's life. The problem is that although this information has been available to potential dog owners for close to 50 years, the majority of people associated with dogs, and this will include breeders and owners, have very little understanding of the potential for inappropriate behaviour if the principles established by Scott and Fuller are not followed. As I mentioned earlier, this is a scientific study, and as such the information is not always easy to follow. However, over the years a generally accepted formula has been produced which helps to simplify the process. The formula is that weeks 3 to 8 in a pup's life is where it learns how to interact with its litter mates and its mother. Weeks 5 to 12 is where a pup can learn how to interact with another species, i.e. other animals or humans. And weeks 10 to 20 is where a pup is ready to be exposed to the environmental stresses that it will be exposed to for the rest of its life. The study shows that if pups are not exposed to certain stimuli at certain periods in their development, there is an increased risk of behavioural problems in the future. For example, if a pup is removed from its litter mates prior to 6 weeks of age, it will probably not have been exposed to what is called bite inhibition. This is where it learns from its mother and litter mates how to regulate its bite. If they're removed from their litter mates too early, they may never fully accept the presence of other dogs. If they're not introduced to their new home environment until 16 to 20 weeks, the dog may not be able to develop an appropriate dog-human relationship. Another major problem is the pup's vaccination protocols, which can restrict the dog's exposure to the real world for anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks. It's vitally important that new owners take their dog's education seriously and teach them how to become a valued family member and not a nuisance to society at large. Perhaps one of the most significant issues that Scott and Fuller discovered during their studies was that an inappropriate behaviour that may take a couple of days for a pup to develop may take many weeks, months, or perhaps years for the owner to resolve. There is also a distinct possibility that the behaviour may never be completely eradicated. Next time, we'll be discussing problems associated with stress and fear.